Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we will be going over Scotch Defense Part 2. If you haven't watched Part 1, make sure to go check that out before you watch this video. Remember, everyone, everything in chess you learn is accumulative. So one thing you learn leads to another. Now that I got that out of the way, make sure to take notes and let's get this video started. Checkmate. So the starting moves of the Scotch Defense are e4, e5, knight f3, attacking the e5 pawn, knight c6, defending the pawn, and d4. So I explained each move in more detail in my part 1 video. So if you want to go check that out, you can. I recommend it. So the standard reply for black here is e takes d4. And white usually replies knight takes d4, just taking back the pawn. So here last time we went over the moves bishop c5 and knight f6. Again, those are very important moves, so if you haven't checked it out, go check it out. So today we will be going over queen h4, which let's just do, and also knight takes d4 on the previous move, which I'll get to. So after queen h4, the idea of this move is to pin this f2 pawn and attack this e4 pawn. So for example, if we do any other move that's not that great, he can take on e4 with the queen. So the standard reply is knight c3, developing your piece and defending the e4 pawn at the same time. So here black has a few options. He can just play a random move like knight f6, but then we get a huge advantage because of his misplaced queen and our center control. So black more likely will play bishop b4, pinning this knight, and again, threatening to take on e4. So if you don't know what a pin is, again, go check out my previous videos, which I explained all these tactical motives. So after bishop b4, white faces a pretty tough decision. And the best move in this position is bishop to e2, which is not an easy move if you don't know this move. So remember this move. After bishop e2, one might ask, what happens if black takes the pawn on e4, right? Because the knight is pinned, so we can't take back because bishop takes e1, takes our king. And here, black also attacks this d4 knight at the same time. So here, white plays knight db5, which is the best move. Again, he dodges the knight from attack and attacks the c7 pawn, threatening to fork the black king and the black rook. Again, black always has options, but he probably will take on c3 with the bishop. And now knight takes c3 is possible, but it's just nowhere near as good as the move b takes c3. Again, I want to address another move. If we go back to this position before black takes on c3, black can also take this pawn on g2, you might be wondering why he's not doing it. Well, the answer is, okay, so if knight takes c7, king d8, knight takes a8, then queen takes h1. And black takes our own rook, which we don't want. But white has this in-between move, bishop f3, attacking the black queen and defending his own rook. And if you look at it a little deeper, black only has 2 squares for his queen. And no matter what 2 squares, so the 2 squares are h3 and g6. But it doesn't matter where he moves them. We take on c7 with check. He moves the king, and we take on a8. And now we're completely winning because we're up a rook. So that's a little trap that white can set. But again, going back to that position, I'm just going to move all the pieces back to where originally belonged. So here, like I said, black most likely will take on c3 with the bishop. And here the best move is actually to ruin my pawn structure a little bit with b takes c3 because it still maintains the pressure on c7, which is pretty much the key in this position. So black will soon realize that it's kind of hard to defend the pawn on c7. There's only 2 ways to defend it. One is to move king d8, which we will talk about in just a second. And the second is to play queen e5. But after queen e5, white will play f4. And now the queen has to move again, and there is no square where the white queen can move. Sorry, the black queen can move and defend c7 as well. So queen e5 is not an option. Therefore, black has to play king d8 to defend his c7 pawn. But after king d8, we can castle. And here is the kind of position where we should say, let's stop and evaluate this position. Sorry, castle here, yeah. So now we stop and evaluate this position. So who's better, white or black? You can take a moment to think for yourself and pause the video if you want. So really the answer is white. White is much better. And why? Even though he's down a pawn, if you count material, white has 6 pawns and black has 7. But first of all, black's king is in real danger very soon. His king is exposed in the center and he is unable to castle at all. So that's reason number 1. Reason number 2, white has the bishop pair. Right? The bishop pair, 2 bishops on e2 and c1, especially in this type of open position, can be really powerful. And finally, he's just ahead in development. Look at these black pieces on a8, c8, g8, and h8. Those are all undeveloped pieces. And white's only real undeveloped piece is this and that. So 4 versus 2, that's a pretty big difference. So white is better in this position, and basically the opening stops here. So going back to this position, the beginning position of the Scotch defense, now we just finished looking at queen h4. So now let's look at the last move that basically we need to look at is knight takes d4. But this move we don't need to check out that much because it's actually just not that great for black. We take back on d4. And now basically the opening ends here. And I talked about the importance of central squares in last video and other videos that I made so far. And here you can see these squares, d5, e5, d4, and e4, are all controlled by white. And that is not a good sign for black. So basically, if you see this type of position where material is equal, but you control all the central squares, you automatically know you're better, no matter what's going on the other side of the board. Because white simply has more space to develop all his pieces. A continuation can go maybe queen f6, queen takes f6, knight takes f6 possibly, knight c3. And here we can see white has such an easy game. It's just like we can go on and on about every single move here, but that's just unnecessary. White can play maybe bishop c4, bishop e3, queenside castle, or just f3, protecting the e4 pawn. The bottom line is white is better, and it doesn't really matter what you do as long as you don't blunder. In general, the Scotch opening is a great opening, especially for those who are starting out. Even players at top level, they utilize the Scotch all the time. The line I chose specifically for you guys is with less theory and more concept-based line. So that way you can focus more on the middle game. So that is going to be all for today. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!